Hi guys. The interview will start in like 10 or 20 seconds. I had a great chat with Yoni Wolf the other day. Really interesting and enjoyable. I've cut out the first like 20 minutes because my questions were just not like super pertinent or whatever. So I thought I'll skip past all that stuff, save you guys the time. I'm going to put a link to his Substack and various other music things in the description. Check those out. If you haven't heard his music already, you definitely should. It's amazing. He's my personal favorite songwriter. And yeah, we had a great chat. So it will start here with us talking about touring and stuff like that. You'll be able to catch the gist of what we were talking about very easily. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy. Thanks for watching. Have you ever had experiences that have made you reconsider that, or anything particularly kind of mad has happened to you, or any times when you thought, man, I've just got to kind of work from home, as it were, you know, and sort of stop going out to all these random places? Have you ever sort of had any experiences that have kind of burned you in that way?
Gazillions. Gazillions of them. Yeah. But there's not really an alternative. I'm working on like getting this Substack going and having some kind of like monthly thing where I can get paid to like deliver new songs or whatever to fans. But it's hard to make that pay the bills, you know? So the traditional way that I've always made a living is through touring. And you can't make money on recordings anymore, other than if you're doing some kind of Patreon or Substack or something. So yeah, we're, as artists, I feel like we're a little bit painted into a corner at this point. And even touring is really hard because everything is so expensive and you don't get paid much, anymore. And yet everything costs more, so I know artists are really struggling to make that work even. And that's like the only way we really have to make an income. Some artists are able to pitch their music to like commercials or something. And I don't know that I have the type of music that works that well for that. I mean, I've landed a couple little things, but rarely.
Do you worry doing a monthly thing becomes, in a different way, but has like similar pitfalls maybe to touring, where there's a kind of constant obligation looming over you that takes you out of a kind of flow state where you're thinking, oh, it's near the end of the month, I have to do something, I have to put something on here, I have my, it's due. Do you think that kind of does that aspect bother you?
Not as much. Like there's an element of that for sure, but like I feel like if that was my only responsibility, which it's not, but if it was, I would actually thrive. Like I like having like parameters and like deadlines and stuff. So like, yeah, I don't mind it. It can be hard when I have other stuff. So if I have touring to do, or if I have to deliver an album and like, mix and do and like spend all this time post producing, then it can be hard for me to continue, writing and making demos. But without all that other stuff, I love it actually.
So you've been doing that. You already started doing that.
I did it starting in 2021 or 2 or something, through the record label that I was working with. So yeah, and I enjoyed it a lot. And I just like being able to archive my work like that, my songs, like without having to create these like more formalized albums, just to say, okay, well, like here's all the songs that I'm writing, and they all kind of go into this archive. I like it. I don't know. Yeah, it works for me.
Is it a thing you can like pause if you're like, I just don't have anything at the moment? Can you like stop for a few months and then start again?
I suppose you could. I mean, same with a podcast or whatever. But if you have people paying you monthly, you have to take that into account. So I try to take it seriously, and just try to keep it rolling. Um, and I've been learning uh, how to write when I even feel like I don't really have much to write. I've kind of been learning how to be disciplined in my creative work.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They have a thing on Patreon where they call it literally go on holiday, and it pauses payments. But I think sometimes people get the wrong idea. It's not clear enough to them that the payments have been paused, not just the content, and it feels a bit, I don't know. I've seen it with a lot of podcasts where it feels like, especially when they start making a lot of money, you're making 10 grand a month from there. Who's really going to take a break from that, or who's going to stop? If you think I'm actually done doing this podcast, I'm not enjoying it anymore. I don't feel I'm doing a good job. But then you think, if I just do one more month, I'll get another 10 grand. And then every month you think, one more month, another 10 grand. And I've seen it with some, I think it's been a sort of common denominator in a lot of podcasts where the hosts seem to kind of grow resentful of the show and of the listeners. And it seems like a thing that's, when you start making that much money, it's kind of hard to ever stop or turn it down. I've become, from seeing that, a bit fearful of that, really, of like any kind of ties to anything. But I suppose, like you say, the parameters can be good, right? To actually, otherwise you wake up in the morning and maybe you just do nothing. You're sort of completely untethered, and maybe that in itself is bad as well.
I think it's good to have something to wrap your life around, like, and for me, my creative practice is not only is it like part of my identity, which I don't value that as much, and maybe it's good to sort of to kill that, but it's part of my sort of lifeblood. I feel like there's something like within me that if I'm not expressing myself through some kind of creative channel, then I feel blocked up. Like I don't feel fully like um, you know, the living being that I am. Like, so I think it's good for me to do that. But podcasting to me is a little different, where maybe that started to wear on me and I started to feel a little bit exposed in a weird way. Just talking all the time, you know what I mean? Um, but I think that other thing, that more creative thing, and then not to say that a podcast isn't creative, because it is, and a conversation is creative, but, and I never tired of having the conversations. I'll say that about podcasting. I never got tired of having conversations, but I sometimes got wary of, like, am I saying too much about my life? You know what I mean? Like, am I like, should I be holding more of these things closer to my chest? So I think that got to me a little bit, and so I understand that, and even I understand wanting to take a break from songwriting, but hopefully you build up enough that you can take a month off and still have a song to put up, because you've built up a little bit of a collection of stuff that you've been making. So yeah, but I do understand that mentality. But I'll tell you what, I would do anything for $10,000 a month. Like,
oh man, yeah, yeah, yeah. I hope there's no sort of Dubai billionaires listening right now to that to that offer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, one with very particular tastes. Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean about the feeling exposed thing. It's weird, isn't it? It feels good in a way, but you also feel maybe it's kind of sometimes one-sided because you're talking a lot, and it puts you in almost an unfair position where you feel like, wow, I'm kind of exposing a lot about myself, and that's completely one way. That's only, it's just me. It's not like a real life conversation where there's a kind of back and forth necessarily. It's like you're kind of, you put a lot of it. I think it's sometimes when I see compilations of hosts like, so-and-so being a dick on his podcast or whatever. And it's like, yeah, I mean, he does like 7 hours a week, and most people are dicks at some point, in the week, every week. And when there's cameras on you and you feel uncomfortable and you're quite likely to be a dick, really, like sometimes. And if someone made a compilation of you, like at work, whatever job, like they could probably quite easily make a compilation of you being a dick, at least, with one clip a week, probably minimum,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, me specifically, absolutely. Yeah. No doubt about it.
It's easy to judge, isn't it? Sort of anonymously on the internet. Yeah, I wondered about the Patreon thing. I thought about that for the future, and I thought it would be good, as you say, if you have enough stuff backlogged, then it would never be an issue. You could almost automate it, right? And have this 50 songs are going to come out over the next however many months, the next 10 months or whatever, or more, which would be cool. But so is it, do you, what's your like, attitude to work? Because I'm always interested in, like, I listen to a lot of, for example, like rappers talking about it. And I used to get very insecure because I'd listen to people talking about a lot of musicians in general, especially from back in the day. It was like, I'm always in the studio. I work constantly. I never stop. And people talking about like, I'm there from 9 till 9. And I'd think like, what are you doing for that time every day? 9 till 9 every day. Like, what even is that? And it's only recently, I guess, I've developed more of my own perspective on it, less kind of informed by what I think I should be doing or whatever. But I have a kind of have a strange relationship with work and hard work. Is that a thing you have in yourself? Do you have to force yourself to work hard, or do you just do whatever feels natural? What's been your sort of process with that over the years?
I think I go through different periods. I think my favorite kind of, I have periods where I'm like generating work, writing, and those are a little more loose, where I may not be in the studio all day, but hopefully I'm sort of coming up with stuff enough so that I feel okay about myself. And I'll take these like songwriting courses. I'll take like, see what it's other people's like songwriting, methods or processes look like. And sort of, that's been helpful for me. But that's not like a 24/7 endeavor. It's more like there has to be some inspiration there in some way, though I can kind of force it. And I have enough sort of material, like maybe like lyrics or something that are half done. And, I can kind of like pull those and finish those and put them to some music that I'm working on, or, there's always some way to get to where I need to go with getting something sort of finished up to be a demo, at least, because that's the promise that, demoing is the promise that, later I can fix it. Later I can change it. Later I can, make a whole new recording with this sort of idea in mind and change as much as I want to change. So that takes the pressure off. When I do get into that long work style, it's more like production and post-production, where I can spend 12 hours mixing and post-producing something. Yeah, I can definitely spend full days and like 7 days a week, just like arduously going through trying to get things done. And same with studio, but like going to someone else's studio to work, which that's like probably my favorite thing in the world, is being in another studio somewhere, preferably like in a different city, in a beautiful space or something, and working with other musicians. Uh oh, I lost your picture, but I think okay, there you are. Um, did you catch all my audio there?
Sorry, yeah, we got cut off. So what were you saying?
I can't remember.
Working studio 12 hours.
Oh yeah, just that, there. Yeah, there are times when I'm mixing and post producing that I will be doing like long ass days, day in day out. Um, that's more like at home or whatever. And then yeah, and then working if I'm recording like at an outside studio, often it'll be those kind of long days. But they're like my favorite. That's like my favorite is like working with a group of musicians to realize songs, um, with someone that's maybe they're in control of engineering, so that takes that job away from me, and I can just really think and listen, and um, that's kind of my favorite. Um, but yeah, I go through periods, man. I go there's periods where I work less, and then there's periods where I work a lot. And then part of this sort of my version of the job is balancing a bunch of different sort of things that I do, I guess, or a few different things that I do.
It sounds like then you're not sort of precious about it, I guess. Not like a control freak about your own craft. If you look at songwriting workshops, or you're happy to have obligations or deadlines, or you like working in unfamiliar environments with other people, you've got probably a fairly relaxed attitude about it, I guess. Is that something you've always had, or were you ever a bit more like possessive of your own kind of craft in that way?
I mean, I think that I have an element of possessiveness, but yeah, I have an element of that. But I also really enjoy working with other people, and but I yeah, I'm very particular. I mean, we can certainly say that, about what ends up being the end result of the music that I'm making. Um, so yeah.
But it sounds like you don't feel a kind of I guess I've always had like a kind of like a pomposity about stuff like songwriting workshops. I've been like, I don't want to hear how anyone else does it. I don't want that to like infect me. I always thought, for example, like books about creativity and stuff, I always thought like that's insane. Like, why would you ever try to learn this or that? And I guess a lot of these ideas, I've had a lot of other similar ideas over the years that have kind of unraveled a bit, or I've changed my thinking. Um, but that's one I've always had. I've always felt a bit like uh, like a kind of uh, maybe a misplaced feeling of sort of the essentialness of whatever I'm sort of doing or thinking or feeling. But it sounds like you've not had a.
Well,
Sorry,
I
go ahead.
guess no, yeah, I guess like I feel like I probably wouldn't have done this sort of thing as a young person. Um, I may have been more sort of cocksure, and like I may have, um, yeah, wanted to keep some purity to my outsider artness, and not learn actual like theory or something. And I've never taken a theory class, but I like people, and I'm I'm not like deluded enough to think that like I'm the best songwriter in the world. So I like to get a sense of how other songwriters do their thing. And I think even sometimes if I'm not like a huge fan of their songwriting, I want to know what people's process, especially if someone's been doing it for years and years and years. I want to know like what's their approach, you know what I mean? Like, and like, what elements in that can I give a shot? No, I'm not precious at all. At this point, I'm not precious at all. At this point, I'm making demos and writing, and like, if I don't like the song, it doesn't have to go anywhere. It's an exercise, and it's me like flexing a muscle and craft, making something. And you know what though, like I say that, but 9 times out of 10, something comes out that feels kind of real, and like, because it's filtered through me and my sensibilities, it becomes like one of my songs, even if there's a prompt or something that I'm like, this is fucking corny. Oftentimes I won't even do if I'm like, yeah, this is corny, like it's not really where I'm at, then I'll kind of skirt it, but still it might spark something, like it's so delicate, the creative process, that this is Marty. The,
What's he
the
got on
creative,
there?
he's my boy.
What's he wearing? You got himself a little hoodie.
Yeah, a little pumpkin hoodie from Halloween times.
I was going to say, yeah, look like a Halloween thing. Bless him.
So yeah, I think that process is so delicate that like any little thing you throw in there is going to change the outcome and stir the pot. And I think that's awesome. I think like I'm not like, I'm porous. I'm porous. I mean, that's the bottom line, is like, I'm not this like monolithic thing, I'm just a part of everything here in sort of, this 4-dimensional existence, and I'm affected by everything else. And I think that's good. And I think that's where sort of real art comes from. There's nobody's like, I'm not interested in anybody's like ivory tower experience that like, like they I don't know. I think that, yeah, the bottom line is I'm not precious, and I enjoy trying different things. I enjoy challenging myself to be different. I enjoy growing and learning, and like, I'm not, I maybe have an ego at times, but I'm not like stupid enough to think I know everything,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Yeah, I would say I had I guess it's more also in my personal life, really, like from when I first started making stuff around that time. I was like, I guess, extremely narcissistic, and it kind of I guess it's, as you said, as you mentioned about being a kind of part of everything, like that idea becomes, or to me, it's become more and more appealing. Like I was kind of into this sort of insane, kind of deranged, grandiose feeling of importance when I was young, and then now, like, being I think of it even in religious terms. Like I used to feel almost like I was sort of God would be the wrong word, like, but I felt I had a very undue sense of my own self-importance. And now that I'm older, the sort of traditional idea of religion and spirituality is like super appealing to me. Like, even I can't always believe it, but the idea of just being like kind of just one of God's many children, as it were, like that kind of thing is a lot more appealing to me now. Like just being part of life, part of Earth, not necessarily like not like everything is channeled through me and everything is, and there's something kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It's a weird thing to describe, but but it's comforting, that idea, like of just being like a kind of branch on a tree, in a way that it was. I didn't really have that concept previously. I couldn't really see outside of that. Do you
Yeah.
have that kind of? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, just to say that I can relate, to you and your younger self. Like I did have some years. I do feel like some of the Anticon, um, which I think you know what that is, but for those listening, like it's an old record label that I had with some friends. There was a sense there that like we were making this like more like honest and pure expression in a way, and we were very anti pop music and very we were very anti-consumeristic, very anti-convention, very like we kind of had this sense. There was a self-importance, there was like an idea that like, yeah, like we're making this real shit, and like it's a very rare artist that makes like real shit. And I had a little bit of that. But as years have gone on, I realized that even the writers that are making, more pop oriented, schmaltzy, stuff that's meant for the masses, they're very much real artists as well. And they're really, they're making something that maybe it has a different intended audience and a different sort of intended purpose in a way. But, I've gotten into pop music in the last decade or so and or more. And so I appreciate it, and I appreciate those that can write like that. I don't know. I think just as I've gotten older, I've been able to just appreciate what other people bring to the table in general, more so than I did. I do feel like when I was younger, I had a little bit of a know-it-all thing, and um, I think I've swung the other way.
Mm. Is that a pitfall as well? If people are always kind of reinforcing that, people are like, "Oh, dude, you're awesome. You're this. You're that." Like, is that a thing that's particularly, I guess, at a younger age? Is it tricky to avoid getting caught up in that?
Probably, yeah. I think when I was younger, probably I let that get to my head a little more. At this point, it's like it almost becomes just like a weird background part of my life that like. But it's interesting to think that there's this connection that I have with the world that is it's a minimal thing compared to like a Olivia Rodrigo or something like that, but like that I have this reciprocation or maybe it's more one way, I don't know, but that I have this communication with a good number of people on the planet, all over the planet. um so I think there's some kind of strange psychic residue like beneath all that I can sense. But by and large, on a day to day level, or at a purely like sort of awake, conscious level, and then I don't mean awake in like a Buddhist way. I mean like
Yeah.
pedestrian way. That stuff sort of just like blanches out. That stuff just sort of you know maybe 5-10 people a day tell me I'm awesome on Instagram or whatever, and it's cool, and I appreciate it, and like and all that, but I can't hold on to like sort of past accomplishments. um it's about looking forward, and and the act of making work that actually excites me. um
Did you think that stuff would? Was there ever a time when you thought that would do more for you? Like you thought, if I could just do this, or I could just have this, or I could just get this, I'll be complete. Did you ever have any kind of misconceptions about that?
Well, I still have, if I could. Yeah, I still have that all the time, but maybe it's maybe has become a little bit tempered by the years, and realizing in terms of career anyway, I've sort of, that's been tempered, and I sort of realize, take everything in stride.
Hmm.
This is something that we toured opening for Yo La Tengo many years ago, and they were already this was 2006. They were already a band for, at least 20 years, Um, so, I sort of asked them, like, how do you do this when, I think that tour didn't go that well or something. I can't remember for them, and they were like, like, we put out a record. Sometimes people listen to it a lot. Sometimes they don't. We go on a tour. Sometimes people come out to the shows. Sometimes they don't. Like, we just continue on, and that's cool. Like, it balances out. I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what I took from them, and I feel that now. Now I'm over 20 years in, and like, I feel that. I've had times that have leveled off, and then you pop back up, and people are all about you, and they're listening to you, and they're checking for you, and then you pop back down, and everybody's like, when are you gonna put out another record? I'm like, I just put out 2 records in a row that no one heard. You know what I mean? Like, so you have to sort of take all that stuff in stride. But the if only stuff for me, is more life stuff in a way. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sort of talking to, a romantic interest now, but there's always that, like, oh, if I could meet somebody, or, and then, you have, for example, to go, to touch on what we talked about prior to this recorded conversation, you're living in Spain. So it's like, I even have a lyric in a song I made with James Acaster. It's like, if only I could move to Spain, then everything would be good. Or I can't remember what the lyric is, but like, that's very real for me, but I have to, like, center myself and be like, all right, I live in this disgusting US city right now, and pollution everywhere, and cars and sirens and dog shit on the streets, and like old KFC ketchup packets smashed all over, whatever. And like, this is fine too. That's like the goal, this is fine too, and I'm okay, and there's beauty in this. But I think I'd be happier in Spain.
Yeah.
If only.
Yeah. No, it's the same. Like, it's always similar to what you described. With any creative stuff, I've become fully outcome independent. I don't even really, the things I used to think about that were like my dreams, like, oh, if this person would review me, or this would happen. I honestly, like, I don't think I would even be interested. But in real life, like, yeah, I always have that. And I have to look back and remember how badly I wanted certain things that I now have. Or just like, if I could just get out of this bedroom I'm living in with like 9 other people in the house, if I could get out of this terrible situation. Or like our dog in October, she lost the use of her legs. She had this bad spinal injury. And what's funny, today was the first time we walked her without her lead. We let her off the lead. It was, 5 months ago she had this injury. And we said at the time, 5 months ago, we were in hell. We had to come to the emergency vet and everything. And we were devastated, like, because she's our life, and we were walking around here. And the reason we moved here is because the emergency vet is here. And we found out about this place by coming to the emergency vet. And we were walking around and we said, we set the target of March, and we said if by March she's had a couple of swims, she's walking again, she's more independent, we've done everything we need to do in life. Like, that's it. We need to get her well again. And today we were out walking and I saw her and I was like, that's crazy, man. Like, we said if this happened, our life was complete. And of course it's not. The next day you wake up and you have to do more shit and you have to carry on. And if she died tomorrow, I would be devastated. But it was funny to think, like, at that time, that was it. Like, if we achieve this, she gets better, that's it. We can die happy. And that's bonkers, really. In hindsight, it's absolutely bonkers to think that, because, but your focus becomes so singular. But yeah, that's where we're at, I guess, at the moment, is constantly trying to have that. It was always thinking, if this could happen and that could happen, it would be great. And we could get this situation, but you always have to remember, right? Like, it might not, and you have to remember how good you have it now. But it's hard. Do you do like sort of gratitude practice and stuff?
Yeah, that's what I was just kind of thinking about as you were talking about that, is like, yeah, I mean, I don't have, like, I don't like, I did for a while, but I don't like journal every night or whatever, 5 things that I'm grateful for, but I tried this yesterday. I listened to this, like, meditation teacher called Tara Brach, among others. I listen to Eckhart Tolle, and I try to feed my soul or whatever with what these people talk about. And so, like, Tara was talking about, on the last episode I listened to, about a gratitude practice that she does, which is when she's on a walk with her dog, that she'll just kind of whisper to herself, thank you for this, thank you for that, thank you for this, like, just things that come to her mind, as she's walking, like, thank you for the beautiful sunshine, thank you for this wonderful dog friend that I have, thank you for these beautiful trees, thank you for, my creative process that I, thank you that I was just able to write a song, or thank you that, like, and over time, that sort of feeds into your resting mind state, I think, because I just want to say, if I'm coming off as someone who is, like, pious and sort of level with this stuff, that's just not accurate. Like, I struggle a great deal with the if only, and I struggle a great deal with feeling like I have a shitty life, frankly. I have a chronic illness. It's tough, like, I don't have it easy, but then there are other aspects of my life where I do have it really easy, and it's really wonderful. So I think it's about really focusing on that stuff, and, and being, just noticing, noticing that stuff, and being thankful for that.
It's like a daily effort, though, isn't it? I mean, it's something you can't ever. Do you ever get a couple of times? Because I've been good with that lately, I think. Like, and more. I've been thinking about it a lot, and as you said, more informal. Like, yeah, I don't do the journals either, but I just remind myself whenever I start feeling sorry for myself. But a couple of times lately, I thought, I also feel like I'm kind of blunting my emotions a bit with this as well, because I'm like, something bad will happen, and I'm like, no, I'm so lucky. I have such a good life. This is amazing. I shouldn't complain. And I'm like, it's probably, it's hard to find the balance as well, because sometimes I think it's probably good if I'm angry about this thing or upset about, fairly serious thing. It's kind of ridiculous it feels a bit ridiculous to respond to everything with gratitude. It's almost like mind numbing. And some people who go really far down that path, they do seem sometimes a bit kind of numb to things around them in a way that, for me, feels maybe not sustainable or maybe unrealistic, but maybe it's good. I don't know. Do you ever have that thought when you're sort of practicing this?
I've never gotten to the point where I'm able to numb anything out. I mean, so it's all kind of still there. But like you said, it is a daily thing, and it just helps me, like, swing back a little bit towards goodness. You know what I mean? But I know what you mean. And there's like a almost like cult member vibe that you can like feel in people, like they're faking it. And like they may, I've certainly been around people where it feels like they're so positive. They're going to crack at any moment and fucking murder everyone in this room. You know what I mean? Like, yes. And I've definitely had that feeling with people. I'm not one of those people. I may crack and murder everyone in the room, but it's not because I'm super positive. So yeah, but I know what you're saying. I'm not quite there yet, but I think there's a way to. I think there's a way to work with gratitude that is honest and real and doesn't like cover up the blemishes or the difficult stuff, but is a way to just sort of balance things and make you realize that like, yeah, there's this one thing that's going on that fucking sucks, but there are these other things that are still wonderful, and maybe it's not all terrible. You know what I mean?
Being a bit more precise, putting a bit more effort into the thoughts rather than just going, I'm lucky, I'm grateful. You're actually looking at things as they are and trying to be a bit more detailed in your thinking.
I think so. And also being more detailed at the shitty things and being like, why is this shitty and what's shitty about it? And what things can I change? And what things do I just have to accept that they are how they are? And, it's all, life is effort, man. And like, there's no like coasting along really. It's like, it's constant effort as far as I can tell.
Yeah, there's kind of two approaches, I guess, as well. From that point of view, there's the gratitude stuff we've been talking about. And then the other way, I guess, in therapy, for example, if people go to therapy, they're not typically going to therapy and talking about things they're grateful for. It's kind of the opposite, right? You go to therapy and music often is that. Like, and I know you've mentioned in the past, you felt like a lot of your early music was negative and it was maybe a bit imprisoning in some way. I seem to recall you saying on a podcast or something that it was kind of this persona or these ideas that you had developed were becoming a bit negative, and it felt like it was hard to get out of that. And I always had that mindset, like the way to deal with problems is to express them in a way that expresses the negativity of them. And there's a lot of a lot of people do therapy, and I started to wonder sometimes. I think about things that have like traumatized me in my life and things that, and I wonder, like, I don't know. I don't know how much value there would be to me just endlessly talking about these things, if it would do that much. I've begun to doubt that idea, that kind of therapy kind of idea. And I'm sure it's good in moderation, but I don't know. Is that something you felt you'd had enough of, or is that something you feel? Do you do therapy, for example? Is it something you think is useful to kind of dwell on bad things, or what?
I have a therapist. His approach seems to be to sort of push me towards myself, like push me towards meditation and push me towards work, creative work, as a regular practice. That seems to be his approach. I will sort of vent a little in there for sure, but I don't get into that many details of my life. It's not Freudian or anything. You know what I mean? It's kind of, a different approach to that. But I don't know how much that helps me. I mean, meditation helps, and he encourages me about that, and sort of has maybe some methods that he's pushed me towards. And venting to someone I've done a lot of that in therapy with different therapists, and just having them say, "You're okay. It's okay," doesn't do much for me, if that's what you're asking. Um, in terms of in my work, I get a lot out of it. Like, yeah, I do have a lot of negative sort of work, and that's a part of myself um, that I can't deny is that, it's like shadow self or whatever, and I've written a lot from that perspective. Um, and that's one of my go-tos. And I think I write out of difficult feelings a lot. Um, and when I'm feeling good, I don't always have the urge to write. Sometimes I just want to be around people and be in the sunshine.
It's weird, isn't it? I remember my friend who's in a band saying it to me when we were younger, like it's really oddly difficult to write happy music. It just feels. Do you find, for example, you mentioned like shadow self? Do you feel like sometimes you feel all right, and then you sit down to write something, and you're like, God, this sounds like I'm miserable, but I feel kind of fine. But this stuff just sort of comes out.
Yeah, that has happened, but because I think we contain multitudes, and there are different levels and layers of self, and you know maybe feeling fine, maybe there's something unsettled that needs to be still dealt with. That rears its head when you start to go into the subconscious and work on music, or whatever creative pursuit. Uh, so yeah, I think that can definitely happen. And I try to just go with whatever's emerging. Like I try not to fight it, and I've written some happier songs, uh, and I'm glad for that.
Yeah, yeah. So, a couple of other things I wanted to ask you about before we wrapped up. What's your relationship with the internet? Do you ever? Because it feels like kind of everyone I know, even my parents who are like in their 70s, seem oddly hooked to their phones and the internet and stuff. Is that something you do a lot, or have to try and avoid, or what?
Yeah, no, yeah, that's definitely kind of, I think, like the challenge of our era, and I think we're in this weird transition period between living in real life and maybe living in some kind of matrix zone that will probably be the future of
Mm.
humankind, or some merging of humans and AI or whatever. Uh, so yeah, I definitely struggle with it. There's an addiction factor there. Um, I don't particularly like it. I like to live in the real world. Um, I don't like the feeling of my career being so directly entwined with tech, these predatory tech companies, and that's how I have to expose people to my work. Um, it's a struggle. That part of wanting to shift over to like a Substack is wanting to sort of cut that element out and have a direct relationship with my listeners. Um,
Cut what element out? Like kind of social media.
yeah, meta. Basically, cut
Mm.
cut meta out of the equation and be able to just be direct without algorithms, without like weird secret AI spying, weird whatever shit that I don't even know what happens, but it's unsavory. I can tell you that. and it's predatory, and it's very like geared towards consumerism in a way that I'm not interested in.
Yeah.
So yeah, to just have a direct relationship and say, hey, like it's simple, you know, here are these songs that I'm making as an artist, and you can listen to them, pay me a little bit of dosh, and we can go from there. Like that's it. Like, and then we can, you can message me on there, and we can talk. I mean, it doesn't have to be through this, you know, through this other like company that's really the one benefiting from all the everything. I don't know. Yeah, so I don't like that stuff. It's unavoidable at this point, maybe, but um, you know, I have a fantasy, and maybe along with my Spain fantasy of having some kind of flip phone, you know what I mean, and just like living like that, and not not being so um, connected to the social media stuff.
Dude, flip phone is the new log cabin. It's like the new cabin in the woods, you know. Yeah, one day I'll have a flip phone, and I just won't ever, people can email me, and I'll go to the library and check a computer once a month. But like the log cabin in the woods, it's like people do it. I read an article about phones years ago, and it was really just, it was about all of this, and there's someone who experimented, this journalist, it was in the Independent, I think, he experimented with getting rid of his phone, and I was like, that's it, I'm convinced. And I put mine away for like 3 days, and I swear to God, dude, it was like so different. Life felt so different, because you just like grab it when you're anxious and everything, and it was really weird and interesting, and I stopped, and that was probably 10 years ago or 8 years ago, and since then I keep thinking I should really do that again. And
It felt good.
it's just, yeah, man, it felt not good. It felt like like when you trip or something, and you get that feeling of feeling very, very present. Like you feel very like it's not even good. It's like you might feel even a bit sad or a bit uncomfortable, but in a way that's so refreshing compared to the sort of
Feeling.
weird
You're actually
anesthesia.
feeling.
You're actually feeling something other than like, what's in my emails? It's just, it's sometimes I think it's so bad that we can't even see how bad it is, because we're all so in it. Does it present itself in your? I mean, you mentioned you want to get away from that stuff work wise, but is that because for example, like having an Instagram for business reasons, right? It means you have an Instagram, so you end up looking at Instagram. Is that why you want to get away from it, so that you're not looking at all that crap in your day-to-day life personally? And is it something that do you check your phone a lot?
Yeah, I do. And so yeah, it's that, but it's also like being reliant on it for business, and having that feeling of like I have this feeling that like everyone else really understands how to like utilize this thing for business, and like I just feel every time I try, like I feel really like tacky, and like like I can't, how do I be myself on this thing and not feel completely cringe, like, and like also like how do I get people to actually see my posts, and so like they're like all that stuff. I don't know, I just feel like they really have us by the balls in a way that, and the fact that there's this algorithm that that decides who sees what when. I don't know. I just don't like it. I don't like it. And you're just constantly served commercials, and and pretty much everyone on there is a commercial, whether they are selling anything or not. They just feel like they're a commercial, even if they're just showing you their life. Um, and yet I'm still drawn to picking it up every 5 minutes, like picking the phone up, and yeah. So I don't love it, but I don't want to be one of these. I'm not a luddite, like I just feel like it's like intentionally addictive and predatory.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, I was going to ask you strategies you employ, like similar to what we were talking about with gratitude and stuff. But I guess another thing I was going to ask you, is kind of a sort of cliched question, but any things you kind of wish you'd known earlier in life? Any kind of particular sort of wisdom you've gained you care to share, or just anything in general, like some things you do that maybe people might not know, or things that might strategies to kind of to move forward or to keep on an even keel, or whatever, anything like that in that regard, not to put you on the spot.
No, I think I have a lot of that actually. Buckle in. I think that, my young life, oh gosh, where do I even start? I think coming into my music making phase, which started when I was in my late teens, once I started to have a little bit of a career, I got really uptight and I pushed so aggressively and unrelentingly that I just was stressed out all the time. I made myself sick, and I feel like if I was to go back, I would just tell my younger self to just like pace yourself a little bit. That said, things happened as they happened, and my younger self, in a way, set me up to have the liberty to think like this, by sort of setting my career up. Like I wouldn't have probably had, if I wasn't so aggressive back then, I probably wouldn't have had as, I can't say a great career. I've had a decent career and been able to sustain myself. I don't have any wealth or anything, but I'm able to keep going, and so I guess it happened as it had to happen. But yeah, that would be the thing. Is like, relax, like let other people in more. I mean, that's something that I still struggle with. It's kind of letting people in and connecting, and so that's a couple things. I think that's a couple things.
Hmm.
I can't remember the rest of the question. There was something else to it.
It's just things, I guess, just ways to keep moving forward, things you do or have learned to make life easier or better.
Yeah, I think just like also rigidity. I was very rigid. I was vegan for all those years and super rigid about that. And I feel like if I was to go back traveling the world, I would have just been more amenable to how like if we had a host in Japan and they wanted to take us to this one restaurant and just kind of eat what they have there and try to be more open and not so rigid with my ethics, because it's not so simple. That's the thing. Is like, yeah. So that would be one thing. I don't know.
Difficult one whilst traveling, though, right? So you're a vegan for ethical reasons.
I was, yeah.
You were a vegan. Yeah, that's cool. Because I hear a lot of people for health reasons, and I find the ethical reasons a lot easier to understand. Really, like I think about that a lot myself. I respect that you did that.
Health wise, I don't really buy the. I mean, at least for myself, I don't think that veganism is the thing.
No.
I would like, however, to be vegetarian or vegan, again, but my body can't handle it. But if it could, I would.
That's what I was thinking, because it just adds constraints, right, to something that's already constrained. If you have to eat, and if you're traveling, and then it's like, yeah, we don't have a vegetarian option or whatever, and you have to eat like something ridiculous. You're just eating like crisps or something. It's like it's not feasible. That's how it always. I've heard quite a few people say that. Like it just when you travel, it becomes impossible. But the meat trade is just horrific. Do you try to like just be minimal, or do you try to buy it from certain places, or what? What do you do now?
Yeah. I mean, I don't eat mammals for one, and then two, chicken and fish. I try to get like I go to Whole Foods, and I try to get the best stuff I can. I don't know how great it is, but I think it's better than getting something at KFC. Uh, so yeah.
It's weird with chickens, isn't it? I sort of drew the line at chickens, and I thought I can't eat pigs and cows. Like it's just so horrible. And I just kind of told myself, all right, chickens are fair game. They're like, I just don't care about chickens. But then you get so much less meat on a chicken. And I looked at stats the other day of how many chickens are killed per year. And it was like the chart's going up gradually. And then chickens are like, it's unbelievable. It's like 20 times more than, other animals. And I thought, man, that's kind of fucked up. Like when you have wings, you eat like a bunch, you can sit and eat a plate of like 10 chicken wings, and you're like, that's 5 chickens' wings I've eaten. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, I mean, fish is mostly fine, isn't it? But it's
Oh, I don't know about that. People would say otherwise, but I I do eat fish. I do eat fish. I don't feel great about it. Like there certainly are some. I read a book called The Outlaw Ocean. It's dark. I mean, a lot of shit's dark. Like, but I feel like for myself, it's like I want to stay alive, and I'm doing what I have to do to stay alive, and probably I should get some physical blood on my hands in order to be able to continue eating this stuff. But I don't know if I could handle that, and that might completely put me off on it. And then what do I eat? Like I'm already down to very few foods that I'm able to eat. So yeah, that's
the
just
way
that's.
sorry to keep you as well, but oh, sorry, no, go ahead. What are you saying?
I was just saying that's a struggle of mine. Is like that. You know, just yeah, I don't feel great about it.
The way I see it is like you with vegans, they've generally, like you said, you were very rigid about being vegan, and it's almost in some way that's easier because it's just like this is correct and the alternative is wrong. But like we all kind of draw a line somewhere because like most vegans, they'll kill bugs. Most people would eat bugs, right? Most people are like, I don't care about mosquitoes and flies. I'm going to eat them if they
I
tasted
don't want
nice.
to. I don't want to eat bugs, but I kill. That's the one thing I kill is mosquitoes. I don't even kill other bugs.
Fair enough.
But
Yeah, not wasps.
I'm so allergic, I would die if they stung me. But I
Right.
try to just avoid them. I don't kill them. I mean, I would kill them if I had to. Yeah.
It's worse though, isn't it? Because you attract more if you kill them. Yeah, but I feel like everyone has a line, really, even if they don't think they do. There is a line you draw with the sanctity of animals' lives, and that's the thing. Is there's no, you have to decide, and that line constantly moves. But ultimately, you have to, as an individual, draw a line, and that's just an ongoing thing that you have to constantly adjust and update. The one we started, like, if we ever buy dairy or pork or beef, it's when it's in the supermarket, they've marked it down and it's on its last day and it might get thrown away. And I've told myself that that's fine, but I think that's kind of bullshit, really. It's still contributing to the overall thing, but it's like, it's so hard to avoid. It's so hard to avoid
Probably
some of those
better.
foods.
Probably better in Spain than other places. Maybe I want to think that like it's a little closer to home there or something, but I don't really know. Um, but yeah, I think even if that line, I'm one that thinks I think plants have a sentience. You know, like I think that. Yeah, I don't know. You're right about that line. I mean, it's not arbitrary. There are ways to think like, okay, well, you know, you could say, oh, if it has a nervous system, or if it has a brain, or if it has, you know, but people have to decide for themselves. You're right.
Well, dude, really great to chat to you. Thanks for your time. And yeah, that's all. Thanks for listening, guys.